Chiyuv to say a con of Nevi'im Rishonim, Nevi'im Achronim. Rashi says in Divrei Ayomim, whenever Yidden get together to say Kinnos, as we do on Tisha B'Av, he says, you're mechuyev to add a kina for Yoshio HaMelech. This kina will speak about the Shechinah that's found in the heart of every Jew. This is the Yesod of Tshuva. Tshuva means to return. That means that the starting place is always with the Rabbanu Shalom. And the person has to return to that starting place, doesn't have to do anything new. Yoshio HaMelech was the son of a Rasha, Ammon, the grandson of a Rasha, Menashe. From 8 years old, he already was about tshuva, and he mastered a tshuva movement in Klal Yisrael, which unfortunately wasn't successful. So this Kina speaks about the Pintele Yid, that spark that's in the heart of every Jew, and the power for a Jew to return to his roots. Rav Tzaddik says the following in Takonos HaShovim: Gilui Shechinah Gomor Hu HaBeis HaMikdash. The real Gilui Shechinah, one can see the Shechinah itself is only in the Beis HaMikdash. V'zeh ikro b'yemos HaMashiach. And that will be be'ikr in Yemos HaMashiach, that Gilui Shechinah. Aval ikr Gilui Shechinaso b'olam hazeh u'bechedrei halavavos t'bnei Yisrael. The main Gilui Shechinah in this world is in the hearts of every Jew. In Divrei Sofrim he says similarly, Chelek Hashem Amo, Shenafshos Yisrael Him Chelek Eloka. Moshav Matityahu Mishkoni B'Sochom Ani Hashem Hashochen Itam U'Chelek Eloka Mimash Hashochen B'Kerev Kloyos V'Leiv Nashos Yisrael. Where does the Rabbanu Shalom actually dwell? In the heart of every Jew. That's where the Shechinah can be found. That's what the Maral says is the symbolism of the Avodah of Yom Kippur. We take two Seirim. One of them we send alive, La'azozel, and the other one we shed, and we take its blood and we bring it Lifnai V'Lifnim into the Kodesh HaKadoshim. He says the symbolism is the following. A Jew on the outside may look like a Seir, like Esav. Chet. Seirim are a symbol of Chatoim. Ish Soyer. Esav. On the outside we can look like Esav. But that you can send away into the Midbar. But if you take that same Seir and you go inside into the depths of its neshama, you'll find blood. The Gemara says that when they wanted Yaakov to think that Yosef was eaten by a wild animal, they took his ksonis and they dipped it in the blood of a Seir, because the blood of a Seir is the most similar to human blood. So if you look deep into that Seir, you'll find blood that's human blood, that's fit to go into the Kodesh HaKadoshim. That's what a Jew is. On the outside, he may appear to be pretty bad. But if you delve deep enough, every Jewish neshama has a part, the Nefesh HaChaim says, that can't ever be contaminated, can't ever be changed. Ritzoneinu lasos ritzonecha, that Pintele Yid, the Sfas Emes calls it Mogen Avram. There's a part of the neshama that's always screaming Ritzoneinu lasos ritzonecha. It can never be contaminated, never be changed. And that's why you can force a person to do a mitzvah, because he really wants to do the mitzvah. It's just that his Yetzer Hara prevents that real desire from coming to the surface. And therefore, Kofin also Shachiyoma Rotzan, he doesn't change his will. You cannot change his will, the Rambam says, that you can't make something willful by force. You're a tarte desas. But if you're just beating away the impediments, the deterrent from that will that's there anyway to come to the surface, then what the person says, Rotzani, that's his real will. And all you've done by beating him is taking away the things that suppress that will from coming to the surface. And therefore, the Maharal says that Matan Torah was done b'kfiyah. We were forced. God picked up the mountain and forced us, even though we said Nasa v'nishma. He says because a wedding that is affected by the consent of both parties can be abrogated with a get. But a relationship that's created b'kfiyah and honest is lo yuchal l'shalcha kol yoma. You never get divorced. The Rebbe Shem wanted us to know that we have a connection to him that is always there. And therefore we can be forced because we're just expressing that inner desire. And that's why the Maharal says that normally a gerus creates a new person. And they're mutter now to all the arayas they were also to before. But by Klal Yisrael, we went through gerus at Har Sinai, and we remained also to all the arayas. Because we didn't become a new person. It was just uncovering what was there to begin with. That's the way it can be happen when it can be done b'kfiyah. And therefore, that is the specialness of Klal Yisrael. That we have that nitzutz, that spark, every Jew. And that's what Yitzchak was impressed with when he saw Yaakov Avinu. Vayorach es reach b'godov. The Medrash says, Al tikrei b'godov el bogdov. He wasn't impressed with the tzaddikim of Klal Yisrael. Because every nation has tzaddikim. He was impressed with the rebels in Klal Yisrael. That even they have that spark within them that eventually will be revealed. And the Medrash brings down 3 maisim. Yosef Mesita, 2 maisim. Yokum Hisorerus. Yosef Mesita was a Jew who, when the Romans came and they wanted to pillage the Heichal, so they felt that they didn't want to go in. It was, even they felt that it was not proper to go and to pillage this holy place. So they got a Jew. What Goyim won't do, Jews will do sometimes. So they told him, you go in, whatever you take out first is yours. After that, bring out the booty for us from this holy place. So he went in, he took out the menorah. Nice piece of gold. So they told him, forget it. This is really something special. We can't let you, take the menorah, right? Even the Goyim had a feeling that this is not something that can be used for personal use. So he said, go and get something else. He said, once I angered the Rebbeinu Shalom by going in. Twice I can't go in. He told them, either you go in, or we will torture you to death. He said, once I angered the Rebbeinu Shalom, twice I can't do it. They tied him to a horse and dragged him through the streets until he died. And the whole time he was screaming, Oi, that I was Mavazah the Rebbeinu Shalom once. That's Reach Bogda. This is a guy who in the beginning was willing to go and pillage the Heichal and the Kodesh HaKadoshim for the sake of the Romans who felt it wasn't proper. But there's something inside a Jew that once he went in there, they say, it awakened that spark, just being in the Heichal. And when he came out already, he was a different person. Story told before, Dr. Ganshor. Dr. Ganshor was a German doctor who converted to Christianity in order to promote his career. Jews were not promoted in career of medicine in Germany. And he turned his back on the Jewish community. He was a mummer, a meshumit. when the Nazis occupied the city, so they knew of this doctor who was a convert to Christianity, and they figured that they could use him against the Jewish community. So they told him, we want you to give us a list of the 10 richest people in the Jewish community so we don't waste our time and we go directly to them and divest them of their money. The first stages of our occupation in this city. And he refused to give them the names. So they said, we suspect that maybe you're not such a faithful, genuine Christian. So we're going to give you a test. And they took a little Sefer Torah that they had taken from a shul that they burnt, and they threw the Sefer Torah at him, and they said, take this, and here are matches and kerosene. Pour the kerosene on this Sefer Torah and burn it. And that way you'll prove to us that you're really a faithful Christian, and you really have turned your back on your people. Took the Sefer Torah, and he held it tightly, and he said, there's no way that I'm going to burn the Sefer Torah. They told him, okay, you have two choices. You burn the Sefer Torah, or we will burn you alive with the Sefer Torah. That's your choice. He held the Sefer Torah and refused to give it up. They doused him with gasoline and burnt him alive with the Sefer Torah. There was a Jewish woman who was forced to clean the offices of the Gestapo where this took place. She witnessed what happened. And she knew that the doctor had left his coat in a room when he came in. So it was some memento that his widow could have. So she took the coat and snuck it out of the building and brought it to his widow, and she told her what she witnessed, that her husband had died together with the Sefer Torah, burnt alive, but she said, I would manage to save his coat for you. Here you have some kind of remembrance. Took the coat, and they noticed that there was an area to the inside of the coat where there had been sewn in a pocket. They opened it up, and they found a letter inside. The letter said the following: I regret having turned my back on my people, and every night, Girsa Yankasa, the Gemara that I learned when I was a little boy, haunts me. I did it in order to promote my career. I regret it. And the only prayer I have to God is that if I wasn't courageous enough to live like a Jew, He should at least give me the opportunity to die like a Jew. That was the letter. That's a Meshumim. That's a person who converted to Christianity. But that Pintele Yid, Reach Bogda, that's the godless of Klal Yisrael, not the tzaddikim. Tzaddikim everybody knows. But these kind of people who have that Pintele Yid, who have that nitzuz, that eventually is never lost. And that is what tshuva is, returning to that starting point. Because every Jew starts, Elokai neshama shenosata b'tahora, starts tahora, starts connected to the Rabbanu Shalom. So why wasn't Yoshiyahu successful? Because there's more than just that nitzutz of Kedusha. You have to put it into a framework. The chait of Nadav and Avihu was that they went after their emotions and didn't understand that that Pintele Yid, that spark, has to be put into perspective. You can't just get carried away with emotion, because that's also not proper. Many people who are drunk, literally, with ruchnis, with the Rabbanu Shalom, they want to bring out that inner feeling of Kedusha, and they do it in so many distorted ways. Ways that have nothing to do with Yiddishkeit. And turn things that are Kodesh into circuses. That's also not proper. That Pintele Yid is very important, but it has to have limits, boundaries. It has to be qualified properly. Yoshua Melech had this tremendous nitzutz, a tremendous spark of kedusha. He was the one who did tshuva at 8 years old, against his father, against his grandfather. Tremendous. But when it came time to putting it into perspective, to putting it into boundaries, he couldn't do it. When Paro Nechei told him that he wants to come through Eretz Yisroel to fight Ashur, so Yoshio refused him entrance into Eretz Yisrael because he was drunk with the kavod of Klal Yisrael and drunk with kedusha. And it says in the Torah, the v'cherev lo savar b'artzachem, that even a cherev shel shalom, even a people going to somebody else's army won't pass through Eretz Yisrael. He was intoxicated with kedusha and with avas Hashem. But the Yirmiyah Navi said, I want them to go through. The Rebbeinu Shalom said, let them go through. So there's discipline. You listen to the Navi. But when you have that tremendous spark and you let it be free and not guided by what halacha is, there's dikduk also. There's halacha. It's not just feeling whatever you want to do. And then you distort all Jewish tradition. Everything becomes a distortion. Whether Avelis becomes a distortion, whether Simcha becomes a distortion, whether mitzvahs become a distortion, taking challah becomes, everything becomes schoolless and tremendous ideas of kedusha, whatever, but there's halachas. The halacha doesn't become important anymore. Everybody is swept away by their emotion. When you let that spark hefker to emotion, a lot of times it causes forest fires. The spark has to be contained within the dikduk of halacha. Yoshio didn't understand that, and therefore that tremendous spark didn't help him. And that's why we say a kinnos for Yoshio at the same time to recognize tremendous emotion that exists in every Yiddish heart. At the same time, that emotion has to be kafut, to halacha, to dikduk, not to be over the aveira of another ben aveira. The story, a Russian had a grandson who was far from Yiddishkeit. They came to shul on Yom Kippur. They were mechabed this Russian with psichas ha'orim. And there's one Sefer Torah that had a choshen on it, and on the choshen was an Aron Kodesh with doors in the miniature. So you could open the doors on the choshen itself. The Russian went and opened the Aron Kodesh, and then he went back. And he opened the doors on the choshen. Somebody witnessing it said they felt that he was trying to open the pnimius of that grandson. It was so estranged from Yiddishkeit. But maybe if you can't just open his soul on the outside, maybe you can open the inner opening of that soul. That's what Yidden have to do. It's not just other people. We have to do it for ourselves. To open up our neshamas, it's there. To open up the proper way, though, because there's still doors. There's still a proper entrance and a proper exit also. Let me tell you how you see that. So this just last night. How do you get to see the neshama of a Jew and not to be fooled by the outside, by what looks like a seir? Rafi Levine had two jobs. He was the principal of Eitz Chaim, and he also was the chaplain of the Jewish prisoners under the mandate of England. So he once told his daughter the following. Rafi once told her that one of the guards came to visit one of these Jewish prisoners, apparently seeing a need to caution the innocent rabbi against deception, had informed him about a certain inmate. Don't be fooled by him, Rabbi, the guard advised. He doesn't always wear a yarmulke. He puts it on only when you come. Rafi assured the guard that he needn't worry about that, since he never looked at any inmate to see whether the head was covered or not. He looked only at the inmate's heart. Some people aren't fooled necessarily by the externals, they're not concerned with that. But they're able to see into the heart of a Yid and see what they really are. How do you get to be able to see like that? How do you get X-ray vision? So there's another Maisa, the Vari of Aviv. And I think this tells you the secret. Vari was the principal of Eitz Chaim Talmud Torah. Rabari's son, Reb Chaim Yaakov, came to visit him at work one day during recess. Rabari was looking out the window, watching the children at play. What do you see when you look out the window? He challenged his son. Reb Chaim Yaakov replied, that boy has a lot of energy. I can tell by the way he runs. That boy over there on the sideline seems to be learning. He must be a big masmid who isn't interested in playing. Rabari shook his head gently. Let me tell you what I see. That boy over there has torn shoes. The one next to him is terribly thin. I must find out if he had breakfast today. That child is playing without a sweater or coat. His parents probably can't afford one. I hope to work on all 3 Talmidim by day's end. I'll bring the first boy to my office and give him a pair of shoes. I'll invite the second one to come to eat in my office, and I'll get a jacket for the third. When you know this, the externals of a Yid, in order to know how to take care of their needs, and that's what bothers you. Not what kind of yarmulke they wear, and not if they're wearing a yarmulke, but what they need. You don't look at them what they are by their chitzonius, but you understand what you can do for them chitzonius-wise. Then you're able to look past the chitzonius and to see what's in their heart, not necessarily what's in the outside. You need both things. You need to know how to look at the externals of a Jew properly, and if you know how to look at the externals properly, then you'll be able to have X-ray vision and see the internals. If we appreciate the Shechinah that's in our hearts, and the hearts of every single Jew, then we'll get a taste of what Shechinah is, and we'll have a tremendous tshuka to have more of it, to have it not only within our hearts, but to be begolui, that everyone, the entire world should be able to see it, the binyan by Shlishi b'nei.